You know, we love stories about giants. We love to hear about their incredible rise, their absolute dominance, and yeah, sometimes their dramatic fall. Today, we're diving into the story of a true American giant, General Electric, and the incredible story of how it was broken apart.
Because this year, the General Electric that we all knew, it just ceased to exist. I mean, think about it. This is a company that has Thomas Edison in its DNA. At one point, it was the most valuable company in the entire world. And now, the sprawling conglomerate we knew is gone, fundamentally transformed.
So you have to ask the question, how on earth did this happen? What were the forces, the key decisions, the people that led to the complete disassembly of this industrial titan? Let's unpack it.
All right, so to really understand the ending, we've got to rewind the clock and go back to the beginning. Before GE became this financial behemoth, it was the American industrial company. It was a symbol of innovation and, just pure manufacturing power.
This quote right here, it just perfectly captures the essence of the old GE. This wasn't just some company. It was woven into the fabric of America's identity. It built things, real things, like jet engines, X-ray machines, even refrigerators. It basically defined American innovation for a huge chunk of the 20th century. But then, a revolution came.
And that revolution was led by one man, Jack Welch. Now, when he took over as CEO back in 1981, he didn't just want to run GE. No, he wanted to completely remake it. And in the process, he kind of remade all of corporate America.
This was his famously ruthless mandate. It sounds pretty simple on the surface, right? But this one philosophy set off a seismic shift inside the company. There was absolutely no room for sentiment, no room for tradition. If your division wasn't a dominant market leader, you were on the chopping block, period.
His whole strategy, which people later started calling Welchism, really stood on three main pillars. First, massive, aggressive downsizing. Second, this relentless pace of deal-making to fuel growth. And third, and this is the big one, a pivot away from making things to making money with money, a process known as financialization.
And when I say the downsizing was aggressive, I mean it was brutal. In just his first 5 years, Welch cut 112,000 jobs. And get this wasn't because GE was failing. In fact, it had just posted a $1 billion profit. This is what earned him that infamous nickname, Neutron Jack. The idea being that after he was done, the buildings were left standing, but all the people were gone.
And the impact of his philosophy went way beyond just GE. Before Welch, your average CEO made about 21 times more than their median employee. But after his era set a whole new corporate standard, that ratio just exploded to over 350 to 1. He didn't just change a company, he really set a new precedent for the whole economy.
For 2 straight decades, Wall Street absolutely adored Jack Welch. The stock just kept climbing. But his legacy, well, it's one of the most polarized in business history.
It's like there are two totally different versions of the story. On one hand, you have Fortune magazine naming him Manager of the Century for the mind-boggling shareholder value he created. But on the other hand, you have critics like the author David Gelles who call him the man who broke capitalism, arguing his playbook basically hollowed out the company's soul and really hurt the American worker. Now, the secret to his financial success was really GE Capital. He took what was a pretty small side business, offering loans for people buying GE appliances, and he turned it into a massive, unregulated financial institution. By the time he left, this financial arm was generating up to 60% of the company's profits.
And this quote from Welch's own autobiography, it says everything. He realized that the profit margins in financial services were just way more attractive than in manufacturing. So he turned his back on GE's industrial DNA, all in the pursuit of those Wall Street-style profits.
And for a while, that strategy worked like a charm. But the very complexity that Welch built, the thing that made GE so successful, well, it also contained the seeds of its eventual downfall.
Just look at this number. Between its peak in 2000 and 2018, GE lost over $500 billion in market value. The empire that Jack Welch built just became too big, too complex, and honestly, too opaque for anyone to manage effectively. And that's because it started suffering from something called the conglomerate discount. The theory is actually pretty simple. When a company is this sprawling mix of totally unrelated businesses, like, say, jet engines and subprime mortgages, investors get confused. They can't figure out how to properly value it, so they end up undervaluing it. The whole becomes worth less than the sum of its parts. You can see the unraveling start right after Welch retired in 2001, just a few days before 9/11. That crisis, and then especially the 2008 financial meltdown, they exposed just how incredibly risky GE Capital had become. By 2018, the company was in a total freefall. So the board brought in an outsider, a guy named Larry Culp, with one clear mission: save GE by taking it apart.
Which brings us right up to today. The final chapter of the GE conglomerate isn't a death, it's more like a rebirth. A rebirth as three separate, much more focused companies. And the results so far have been pretty stunning. GE Aerospace, which was always the crown jewel, is hitting all-time highs. GE Vernova, which is focused on energy, has seen its stock appreciate five-fold since its spinoff, thanks to the massive energy demands of AI and data centers. And GE Healthcare is stable and growing. It turns out, unlocking the conglomerate was absolutely the right move for investors.
And in a final, kind of perfect, ironic twist, Larry Culp, the man who systematically undid Jack Welch's entire legacy, has been rewarded handsomely. His incentive package for pulling off the breakup is projected to make him a billionaire, a fortune literally built on taking an empire apart.
This quote about Culp's leadership really shows you the profound philosophical shift that's happened. Where Welch was obsessed with financial metrics and hitting the quarterly numbers, Culp's approach is a total return to basics. Focus on the customer, focus on the product, and improve your manufacturing. It's a complete rejection of the very Welchism that once defined GE.
So, at the end of the day, what do we take away from all this? Is the breakup of GE a massive success story, a blueprint for how to fix a bloated, overly complex company? Or is it a cautionary tale about a corporate philosophy that prioritized short-term profits over its industrial core, its people, and its own long-term stability? That right there is the billion-dollar question GE's legacy leaves us with.